Welcome class to another session in Statistics and Probability. You are with Ma'am Jenna. So our lesson for this session is solving problems involving test of hypotheses on a population mean and formulating the null and alternative hypothesis of population proportion. So this is quarter 4, module 13. For our objectives, the first one, solve problems involving test of hypotheses on the population mean. Second, formulate the appropriate null and alternative hypothesis on a population proportion. Third, identifies the appropriate form of test when the central limit theorem is to be used. And fourth, identifies the appropriate rejection region for a given level of significance when the central limit theorem is to be used. Hypothesis testing on the population mean. In hypothesis test for a population mean, the claims are statements about a population mean. But we will see that the steps in the logic of the hypothesis test are the same. So the tables and figure below are provided for your quick reference. Okay, so in table 1, so I believe this table was given to you in our previous lesson. So it shows that the different types of hypothesis tests. We have the 3, the left-tailed test, the right-tailed test, and the two-tailed test. This is based on the symbol used in our alternative hypothesis. And when do we reject the null hypothesis? So left-tailed if the symbol used in the alternative hypothesis is the less than symbol, right-tailed if it is greater than symbol, and two-tailed if the symbol used is the not equal to symbol. So when do we reject the null hypothesis? If it is a left-tailed test. So we reject the null hypothesis if the test statistic is located to the left of the critical value or pasok siya doon sa ating rejection region. Right-tailed, the test statistic is located to the right of the critical value again or the rejection region. Two-tailed, the test is located of the negative critical value or to the of the positive critical value. Because sa two-tailed natin, meron tayong dalawang rejection regions, isa sa gawing kaliwa at isa sa gawing kanan. Yung dalawang tails natin ay merong rejection region. Okay, next, table 2, the level of significance. So this was also given to you in our previous lesson. So we have the 3 commonly used level of significance, the 0.10, 0.05, and 0.01. So these are their corresponding z values kapag siya ay left-tailed, right-tailed, o kaya siya ay two-tailed. And then the third table, or this is the figure 1, critical values. These are the beginning and ending of the rejection region, both for the z-test and the t-test. Dito sa ating first figure, makikita nyo ito ay one-tailed, left-tailed siya. Yung shaded part is the rejection region. So this line is the critical value. Ito naman ay one-tailed din, pero right-tailed siya. Shaded part, rejection region. This line is the critical value. Sa positive side, ito sa negative side. Ito naman ay two-tailed. So, both tails, meron tayong rejection region. So, meron din tayong dalawang critical values. So, example 1. A random sample of 12 babies born in a charity ward of CEV Family Hospital was taken with a sample mean weight of 2.5083 kilograms. Assuming that this sample came from a normal population, investigate the claim that the mean weight is greater than 2.5 kilograms. The population standard deviation is 0.2 kilogram. Use the level of significance alpha of 0.05. So, reminder lang, kapag meron tayong word problems, i-take note nyo na agad yung mga important details na nakakailanganin natin sa ating solusyon. Kagaya ng 12 babies, yung 2.5083 kilogram, the greater than 2.5 kilograms, the standard deviation of 0.2 kilogram, and the value of the level of significance alpha of 0.05. Okay, for our solution, step 1, we need to formulate the hypothesis, both the null and the alternative hypothesis. So, answer, the null hypothesis is the mean weight of a born baby in a charity ward of CEV Family Hospital, which is 2.5 kilograms. In symbols, ang ating null hypothesis, mu is equal to 2.5. The alternative hypothesis is the mean weight of a baby born in a charity ward of CEB Family Hospital, which is greater than 2.5 kilograms. In symbol, yung ating HA or H sub 1, mu is greater than 2.5. So that is step 1. Step 2 is to determine the level of significance. The level of significance is given in the problem. So, yung value ng ating alpha is 0.05. So, this is one-tailed test as suggested by the alternative hypothesis. This is right-tailed test specifically. Kasi ang ginamit na symbol dito is greater than symbol. So, therefore, it's right-tailed test. Next, we have step 3. Calculate the test statistic and identify the rejection region. So, dito sa step 3, ilalagay na natin yung mga given, no, na kinuha na pwede nating makuha doon sa given problem. So, yung claim na yung ating sample mean, which is the claim or the X bar, yung 2.5083 kilograms. Yung hypothesized mean, yung mu natin na 2.5. The sample standard deviation or the S, 0.2. And the number of samples, yung N natin, which is 12. So, test statistic to be used is t-test. Bakit? Because the number of sample is less than 30. Now, pagka greater than 30, z-test. Pag less than 30, t-test. So, ang formula natin, t equals x bar minus mu over s divided by the square root of n. Substituting the values, we will get 0.1438. So, at 0.05, yun yung ating alpha, the rejection area is ang value ng ating t. No? So, the t value according doon sa ating t table is positive 1.796 with the DF or the degree of freedom of 11. Kung matatandaan nyo, sa paggamit ng ating t table, kailangan nating alam natin yung value ng degree of freedom or DF. Ang formula lang naman nito ay n minus 1. Ang n natin ay 12 minus 1. Kaya siya naging 11. And then, tsaka tayo titingin doon sa ating t-table, ang D11, at yung ating alpha is 0.05. So, doon nakuha yung 1.796. So, pwede kayong mag-refer doon sa t-table na ginagamit natin. And then, step 4, state the decision rule. Whether to reject or not to reject. Sabi kasi dito, reject the null hypothesis if the computed test statistic is greater than or equal to the positive critical value. Kasi positive, sa right side itong ating critical value no? So, kapag siya ay greater than or 2, so 1.796, we will reject the null hypothesis kasi pasok siya sa rejection region. And do not reject or i-accept natin yung ating null hypothesis if the computed test statistic is less than positive critical. Kapag yung value na to ay less than 1.796, we will not reject or we will accept our null hypothesis kasi siya ay nandun na sa non-rejection region. Step 5, make a decision based on the test statistic and the rejection area. So, the test statistic T is 0.1438. Ito yung nakuha natin kanina dun sa computation natin. So, yung 0.1438 is less than 1.796. It is not in the rejection area. Thus, we decide to accept the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. For our conclusion, that is step 6, we say that at 5% or yung alpha natin na 0.05, at 5% level of significance, there is not enough evidence to support the claim that the mean weight of the babies in the charity ward of CEV Family Hospital is greater than 2.5 kilograms. So, inaccept natin yung null hypothesis na ang mean weight ng baby born sa CEV Family Hospital is 2.5 kilograms. Example number 2. A sports trainer wants to know whether the true average time of his athletes who do 100 meter sprint is 98 seconds. He recorded 18 trials of his team and found that the average time is 98.2 seconds. With standard deviation of 0.4 seconds, is there a sufficient evidence to reject the claim at the 0.05 level of significance? Again, tingnan natin yung mga important data. We have the 98 seconds, the 18 trials, and the 98.2 seconds, and also the 0.05 level of significance. Solution, step 1, formulate the null and alternative hypotheses. So, the null hypothesis is the true average time of a sports trainer's athletes who do 100 meter sprint, which is 98 seconds. So, in symbols, null hypothesis mu is equal to 98. The alternative hypothesis is the true average time of a sports trainer's athletes who do 100 meter sprint, which is not 98 seconds. So, in symbols, ang ating alternative hypothesis mu is not equal to 98. Step 2, determine the level of significance as given in the problem. The alpha is 0.05. So, this is two-tailed test as suggested by the alternative hypothesis. Yung ginamit na symbol in alternative hypothesis is the symbol not equal to. Therefore, we will use the two-tailed test. Step 3, calculate the test statistic and identify the rejection area. So, what are the given? The claim or the sample mean, 98.2. The hypothesized mean, mu, 98. Sample standard deviation, 0.4. The number of sample, 18. So, again, ang test statistic na gagamitin is the t-test because yung ating sample size is less than 30. So, same procedure, substitute the values, we will get 2.1213. Ang ating alpha, 0.05, the DF is 17. So, 18 minus 1, this is 17. So, when you look at the table, the t-value is plus minus 2.110. So, this is our rejection area. Or, these are the two critical values. So, decision rule, reject the null hypothesis if the t-value is less than negative 2.111 or if the t-value is greater than positive 2.111. Okay, for our step number 4, make a decision based on the test statistics and the rejection area. So, the test statistic, yung ating T sub alpha over 2, ito yung ating critical value. Ito yung nakuha natin na 2.110 or 2.111. So, and then yung 2.1213, ito yung t-value na nakuha natin. So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung 2.1213 ay greater than 2.111. So, therefore, pasok siya dun sa ating rejection region. So, therefore, it is in the rejection area. Thus, we decide to reject the alternative hypothesis and accept the null hypothesis at 5% level of significance. Basta pag pumasok siya sa rejection region, i-reject natin siya. So, in-accept natin dito yung null hypothesis kasi yung claim natin ay nandun sa alternative hypothesis. So, ang conclusion natin, step 5, the recorded 18 trials of the sports trainer team enough to claim that the true average time of his athletes who do 100 meter sprint is 98 seconds. P-value method. So, the p-value or probability value is the probability of getting a sample statistic as extreme as the test statistic in the direction of the alternative hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. So, to use a p-value in making conclusions for a given data at the level of significance alpha, we use the following rule. So, dalawa lang yung rule natin kapag ang gagamitin natin ay p-value. So, the first one is to reject the null hypothesis if the p-value is less than or equal to alpha. Or, we do not reject or we accept the null hypothesis if the p-value is greater than alpha. Kapag less than or equal to yung p-value natin sa alpha, reject the null hypothesis. If the p-value is greater than the alpha, we accept or we do not reject the null hypothesis. Example 3. A claim is published that in a certain area of high unemployment, 195 is the average amount spent on food per week by a family of 4. A home economist wants to test this claim against the suspicion that the true average is lower than 195. So, ang suspicion is lower than 195. She surveys a random sample of 36 families from the locality and finds the mean to be 193.20 with a standard deviation of 6.80. Using p-value method at 0.01 level of significance, test the home economist's claim. Okay? So, mga data natin, we have 195. We also have 36 families and 193.20. And also, we have 0.01 for our level of significance. Solution. Step 1, formulate the null and alternative hypotheses. So, the null hypothesis is the average amount spent on food per week by a family of 4, which is 195. So, in symbols, null hypothesis mu equals 195. The alternative hypothesis is the average amount spent on food per week by a family of 4, which is less than 195. So, in symbols, H sub 1, mu is less than 195. Take note, ang symbol na ginamit dito ay less than. And then, step 2, determine the level of significance. Ang ating alpha is 0.01. So, again, this is one-tailed test as suggested by the alternative hypothesis. Since ito ay less than, ito ay left-tailed test. Step 3, calculate the test statistic and identify the rejection region. So, ang claim natin, sample mean, 195. The hypothesized mean, 193.2. The standard deviation, 6.80. Number of sample, 36. Siyempre, ang test statistic na gagamitin ay z-test because the number of samples is greater than 30. So, using the formula, substitute the values, we will get 1.588 or approximately ito ay 1.59. The p-value is to the right of the computed z, to the right. So, imagine niyo sa normal distribution, dun sa graph natin, ilocate nyo nasaan yung 1.59. So, nandun siya sa gawing kanan, diba? Sabi dito, the p-value is to the right of the computed z. Using the z-table of areas under the normal curve. Yung p-value natin is equal to the probability that z is greater than 1.59. So, the area between z equals 0 or yung center ng ating normal curve and z equals 1.59 is 0.441. So, kung titignan nyo doon sa z-table, saan ba galing tong 0.441? Ito ay galing sa z-table. Locate nyo sa z-table yung 1.59 under yung ating alpha na 0.01. So, makikita nyo yung 0.441. So, p-value is equal to 0.5 minus 0.4441. So, yung half nung ating normal curve yung ginamit natin, ano? Kaya siya isinubtract sa 0.5. Kasi it's between 0 at saka 1.59. Kaya 0.5 minus 0.4441 is equal to 0.0559. Since the test is one-tailed, the p-value remains as is. So, ang p-value natin is 0.0559. Kasi kapag siya ay two-tailed, magpa-plus tayo. Pero since ito naman ay one-tailed lang, the p-value remains as is. So, we have the p-value 0.0559. Step 4, make a decision based on the test statistic and the rejection area. So, ang decision rule natin, reject HO if the p-value is less than or equal to alpha, or do not reject the HO or the null hypothesis if the p-value is greater than alpha. So, we all know that yung nakuha nating p-value na 0.0559 is greater than 0.01. So, therefore, eto siya. So, we do not reject the null hypothesis. So, draw a conclusion. We say that at 1%, eto yon, yung 0.01 yan ay 1%. Level of significance, the population mean is 195. Hence, the null hypothesis is accepted and the alternative hypothesis is rejected. Kasi nga, the p-value is greater than alpha. So, therefore, we do not reject the null hypothesis. A published issue that in a certain area of high unemployment, economists survey proved that the average amount spent on food per week by a family of 4 is 195. Next, the null and alternative hypothesis of population proportion. Population proportion, denoted by P, refers to a fractional part of a population possessing certain characteristics. It can take on any value from 0 to 1. When we perform a test of hypotheses for population proportion, we take a random sample from the population. This test can be considered a binomial experiment since there are only two outcomes for any trial, that is, success and failure. Kaya siya binomial experiment. And the probability of a success does not change for each trial. For this binomial distribution is to be similar to the shape of the normal distribution, we apply the central limit theorem. The central limit theorem for proportion states that the sampling distribution of the sample proportion or yung P, so binabasa natin to as P hat, is approximately normally distributed with mean P and standard deviation square root of PQ over N. If the sample size N is sufficiently large but no more than 5% of the population size, where P is the population proportion and Q is equal to 1 minus P. Yung Q ay complement ng P, kaya ang formula niya is 1 minus P. So, in our next lesson, marami kayong maintindihan about the population proportion. So, moreover, the test statistic Z used for hypothesis testing of a population proportion P is given by, so ito yung formula natin. Kapag ang gagamitin natin ay P-value, ito na yung formula ng test statistic Z. So, we have P hat minus P over the square root of PQ divided by N, where P hat is the sample population proportion. Ito yung formula ng ating P hat, X divided by N. And P is the population proportion. Ulitin natin na, P hat, sample population proportion. P is the population proportion, where yung formula ng Q, as stated kanina, is 1 minus P, and N is the sample size. So, the following conditions should be met. So, merong dalawang condition na dapat na ma-meet. That the product of NP must be greater than or equal to 5, and the product of NQ must be greater than or equal to 5 also. And then the second condition, that the mu is equal to the product of NP and sigma or the standard deviation is equal to the square root of the product of NP and Q. So, there are two ways in testing the hypothesis: the classical or critical value approach and the probability or p-value approach. The classical or critical approach results in a reject, do not reject conclusion, kagaya ginawa natin sa mga examples kanina. While the p-values measure how confident we are in rejecting a null hypothesis. The critical approach compares the test statistic to the critical values. Di ba ganun yung ginawa natin kanina? Where the p-value method compares the p-value to the significance level alpha. Okay, in general, using the p-value approach, the rejection region is p-value less than or equal to alpha. So, kapag p-value yung ginamit natin, the rejection region is p-value less than or equal to alpha. Using the critical value approach, we have for one-tailed test, ang ating null hypothesis P is equal to P sub O. P sub O is the hypothesized population proportion. So, kung meron tayong hypothesized mean, meron din tayong hypothesized population proportion. Yun nga yung P sub O. Ang ating alternative hypothesis H1 or HA, P is, dalawa po ito, isang greater than at isang less than. So, kapag siya ay greater than, the rejection region is Z is greater than plus Z sub alpha. Kapag siya naman ay less than, the rejection area is Z is less than negative Z sub alpha. For a two-tailed test, HO, P is equal to PO. H1, P is not equal to PO. So, since two-tailed yan, two rejection regions. So, yung una, yung Z is less than negative Z sub alpha over 2. Or, yung pangalawa, Z is greater than Z sub alpha over 2. So, let's determine the null and alternative hypotheses of the following examples. So, in these examples, doon lang muna tayo magfo-focus sa pag-determine ng null and alternative hypotheses using the p-value. So, example 1, the principal of a school claims that 30% of grade 3 pupils stay in the playground after their classes. A survey among 500 grade 3 pupils revealed that 150 of them stay in the playground after their classes. So, determine lang natin yung null and alternative hypothesis. Solution. Let P be the proportion of the grade 3 pupils stay in the playground after classes. The claim is 30% of grade 3 pupils stay in the playground after their classes. Hence, ang P natin is equal to 0.3. So, yung 30%, kinonvert lang sa decimal. So, it is 0.3. So, in words, the hypotheses are HO, 30% of grade 3 pupils stay in the playground after their classes. Ang ating H1 or HA or ang ating alternative hypothesis, 30% of grade 3 pupils do not stay in the playground after their classes. In symbols, HO, P is equal to 0.3 and H1, P is not equal to 0.3. Example 2, according to the survey, 23.8% of Filipinos aged 15 and above are smokers as of 2015. We are testing the claim that the percentage of Filipino smokers aged 15 and above in 2015 is less than 23.8% from a randomly selected 300 samples. Again, ide-determine lang natin yung ating alternative and null hypothesis. Solution. Let P be the proportion of Filipino smokers aged 15 and above. The claim is 23.8% of Filipinos aged 15 and above are smokers as of 2015. Hence, P is equal to 0.238. Again, yung 23.8% kinonvert to decimal, kaya siya naging 0.238. In words, the hypotheses are HO, the proportion of Filipino smokers aged 15 and above is at least 0.238. Ang ating null alternative hypothesis, the proportion of Filipino smokers aged 15 and above is less than 0.238. Kung napansin nyo, di ba nabanggit natin dati na etong dalawa na to ay they are mathematical opposites. So, since ang ginamit dito sa ating alternative hypothesis is less than, syempre sa ating null hypothesis, ito ay above. Or, yung clue ninyo na at least. Na? So, in symbols, ang H natin, P is greater than or equal to 0.238. Yung greater than, iko-contradict ni alternative hypothesis, kaya siya ay P is less than 0.238. Okay? So, ganun lang mag-determine ng null and alternative hypothesis using the P value. In our next lesson, mas pag-uusapan pa natin doon yung population proportion. So, I hope nakatulong ito again sa inyo sa pag-accomplish ng mga activities in your module. Credits to the development team of. Salamat po sa patuloy na pakikinig sa ating mga video at panunood sa ating mga video lessons. I'll see you again next time. Bye!